Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 160 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. Arias Sumra's still missing. He hasn't been with us for 3 weeks on the trot now. It is getting worrying, but we're joined by another very good replacement, the former heavyweight world title challenger himself, Mr. Eddie Chambers. Eddie, welcome back on the show, man. Thank you for filling in for Arias once again. I think it's the 4th or 5th time now, and it's always great having you on. How are you?
I'm good, my man. How you feeling?
Very good, my friend. Very, very good. Like I say, I know that, we don't have all the time in the world, so I'm going to get straight down to the review part of the show. I'm going to start last week at the Indigo at the O2 in Greenwich, London. Just a little card here that I should mention. They did like a little card here called The Ultimate Boxer, which is it's actually a tournament that actually happens all on the day. And then, they fight each other. Then, the loser goes straight out the tournament. And then, the semis. Each fight's 3 rounds. It's quite a fun thing. I think James Toney did something similar when he came over here and fought in the prize fighter that Eddie Hearn used to run. But, this little thing here, it's been kind of organised by Paulie Malignaggi, Ricky Hatton, and one other guy who I've completely forgot about. So apologies for that. But the actual fights themselves... there was a couple of guys that were in this tournament that were relatively well known. A couple of guys weren't known, but the guy that managed to win the whole thing was relatively unknown, but he was actually undefeated. So a big shout out here to a guy called Shakan Pitters, who actually entered the tournament with a record of 7-0. Now he took on Dex Spellman in the quarterfinals, and Shakan Pitters actually had Spellman down in the first round but managed to win unanimously over 3 rounds. Shakan Pitters then went into the semi-finals against Sam Smith, the light heavyweight prospect from Swindon, and Shakan Pitters actually put Sam Smith down twice in the second round, but Sam Smith did get back up, obviously Sam Smith being trained by Paddy Fitzpatrick, and it ended up being a unanimous decision over 3 rounds for Pitters once again. And then in the final, Pitters really did top it off excellently here, a knockout in the second round, obviously of the scheduled 3-round contest, and Pitters moved to 10-0 there, so 3 fights, 3 wins for him on the night, a knockout in the second round against Georgie Bacon, who has a fantastic name if I may say so, a guy that was actually 2-1, and those 2 wins that he found there, I believe happened on the night if I'm not mistaken. So I think he turned up at the venue with a record of 1-1 or 0-1, something like that. And he found himself in the final if I'm not mistaken, and then this guy Shakan Pitters moved to 10-0, so excellent stuff for him. He won some kind of cash bonus there. It's a very fun tournament, and the great thing about this is I think if you manage to get a knockout within the 3 rounds, you get a little bonus on top of your prize money. And every single contest in this tournament, every quarterfinal fight, semi-final fight, and of course the final, in every single contest there was at least 1 knockdown, so that's very exciting stuff there. But leaving that bill alone and moving over now to York Hall in Bethnal Green, London, one fight really to mention over here. Jay Harris, the undefeated Welsh flyweight, he successfully defended his Commonwealth title, a TKO in the 3rd round against Ross Murray, so Jay Harris now 14-0. He did actually get cut on his left eye, but he had his man down in the 2nd round from a body shot, and then like I say, in the 3rd round he was TKO'd, so a good win there for the Welsh fighter. Like I say, Jay Harris still has that perfect record intact. Moving out now to the SSE Hydro in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom. This obviously was the World Boxing Super Series card. We had Victor Postel. He jumped in. He was a replacement just in case one of the main event fighters got injured at the very last stages. Victor Postol took on a guy called Siar Ozgal, and I was very critical of this matchup last week. I said that Siar Ozgal just got knocked out in his last fight against a guy who was 5-2. You know, he was winning every second of the fight, but he did get knocked out in the very last round against a guy who was 5-2, who, you know, no one's really heard of, a guy called Mikey Saki. Very, you know, not even English level, really. He's very much area kind of level. And, you know, he was getting in there against one of the best 140 fighters in the world in Victor Postol. And I expected Postol to knock him out within a couple of rounds, but unbelievably, Postol went the whole distance, 10 rounds with Siar Ozgal, so that's brilliant for him. I mean, it is losses back-to-back now. He was 14-0, and now he's been served up 2 losses in a row, but no shame whatsoever in going the distance with a man like Postol, who picks up win number 30 for him. He's got those 2 losses, one to Josh Taylor and one, of course, to Terence Crawford. Also on this bill, we had Paul Butler moved to 27 wins. He's got 2 losses, also a points win over 10 rounds against Yon Boyo, who had a beautiful looking record, 41-5. Similar kind of record actually to yourself, Eddie, but this guy Yon Boyo hadn't really fought many guys. It was very much a padded record, and he got beaten by Paul Butler pretty easily. Also, we had Zach Parker 16-0 taking on Daryl Williams 17-0. This one was for the vacant British super middleweight title. Now, this fight here has managed to gather lots and lots and lots of criticism regarding the judges. Now, you know, I didn't really score the fight kind of round by round. I didn't feel like I needed to. You know, the styles, it was a pretty good matchup. I mean, in terms of styles, I think that Zach Parker, or I should say Daryl Williams, was all wrong for Zach Parker. I mean, Williams is a complete dog fighter. He's very, very tough, as we knew going in. You know, Zach Parker was unable to keep the distance and keep it long, and not much really was coming from Zach Parker. He wasn't doing very well to keep Williams off of him. And for the early parts of the fight, probably the first 3 or 4 rounds, he was very much fighting Williams' fight. And then, of course, Zach Parker's shoulder, you know, his shoulder went and his shoulder was injured. I'm not quite sure what exactly has happened there with his shoulder, but I know he undergoes surgery. I think it actually was a couple days ago now. So he only had his weak hand. Like I say, he was constantly on the back foot from that point on, and Williams was just completely piling on the pressure. It was a nightmare for Parker. I think that Williams' style, like I say, was all wrong for Parker, to be honest, but that paired with Parker's power punch being taken away from him just simply spelt bad news, because Parker's a very big puncher, and a lot of people expected him to win by knockout, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, I actually thought it was going to be a very sad way for him to lose his O. That's what I've written here, and I'd like to see the rematch, because I think now, after all the controversy, we need to see the rematch, because unbelievably Zach Parker managed to get the win. It was a split decision over 12 rounds. You know, obviously 2 judges favouring Zach Parker. One of them, I think, had Zach Parker by like 5 rounds, which I think was just unbelievable. Now, that referee, you know, he's also a referee, but the judge in this particular event, Victor Lachlan, had a real bad night, because of course he did manage or managed to be referee in the main event, which we'll get onto in just a moment. But I feel like Victor Lachlan had a shocking night there. But yeah, credit to Williams. Last week I spoke about how tough Daryl Williams is, and also we've got to give Parker credit, because even though he got the win, literally everyone's going crazy about this, and I think that Williams' team probably need to get an appeal going to the British Boxing Board of Control. But yeah, very tough for Parker to even stay in there with a man like Daryl Williams unloading on you and putting that pressure on you, and you've only got one arm to defend yourself. It's a very, very hard thing to do. And, you know, credit to him. He showed some serious toughness. He's never been in a dogfight, and he really had to tough it out there to last the distance, but he did. And unbelievably, like I say, he's won the title. And I must reiterate, I'm not saying that he didn't deserve it or he did deserve it. I wasn't scoring it, but I just felt felt that over the general consensus and what I'd seen throughout the fight, I felt that Williams had done enough, but he was the man certainly pressing the fight, coming forward, and Parker was just with one arm, trying to jab. And to be honest, he did have some great rounds. He did have some great rounds just boxing and moving, just jabbing and moving, really. So credit to Parker, like I say, credit to both men, but the rematch must happen in my honest opinion. Moving up the bill once again, we had Josh Taylor 13-0 take on Ryan Martin 22-0. Obviously, Ryan Martin, a man being trained by Abel Sanchez up in Big Bear. And an undefeated professional, like I say. I think Martin was a pretty good amateur as well, if I'm not mistaken. This one was for the WBC Silver Super Lightweight title, and the winner, of course, would proceed to the next round and take on Ivan Baranchyk in the semi-finals of the World Boxing Super Series. I felt that the first 3 rounds in this fight were all for Josh Taylor. I felt that Josh Taylor at that point was going through the gears nicely. Ryan Martin didn't really seem to be at the races. He seemed to be a level, or at least a couple of levels below Taylor. In the 4th and 5th round, it was more of the same really from Taylor. He just looked fantastic in there. He goes from head to body so smoothly. He's very accurate with his punches. He's very spiteful with his punches, and he throws combinations, and very eye-catching ones at that. It was an amazing performance by Taylor at that point. Going into the 6th round, once again, Taylor was boxing pretty much a perfect fight, really. The body shots were starting to get very sickening every time that he'd throw those to the body of Martin. He really does rip to the body. When he goes with his single shots, he really loads up to the body. And he did cut Ryan Martin also in that 6th round. You could see that every punch that Taylor was landing on Martin was a real meaningful punch. Not necessarily a potential knockout punch, but they all took their toll and looked powerful. And they each put a dent in Martin's game bit by bit, I felt. In the 7th round, and this was the final round, in my eyes it was fairly competitive, that actual round, and then Taylor hit Martin in the back of the head after a little combination, and Martin actually took a knee, and then Taylor landed 1 or 2 more, I think it was body shots, which, or I think they were head shots now, because he took a knee. I can't see him ducking so low that he was able to still give him body shots, but I know he hit him with another 2 shots while Martin took a knee, which I felt was a little bit naughty actually. And then Victor Lachlan, like I say, the guy that gave the very questionable scorecard in the Parker Williams fight, he was the referee here, and he jumped in and waved it off immediately. A lot of people were arguing, saying that the stoppage was very premature, especially as Martin was only on the floor because he took a knee after being hit in the head, the back of the head I should say. So I'm not quite sure what Victor Lachlan was doing there. I also think it was a little bit suspect that the fighter here, Josh Taylor, is a Scottish fighter, and the referee, Victor Lachlan, is a Scottish referee. I think he's refereed about 5 of Josh Taylor's last 7 or 8 fights, which again is something that I feel needs to be looked at. But it seemed very, very premature. I don't think it mattered too much, to be honest, because the fight was very one-sided, but the stoppage was very awful. It wasn't too competitive when you think about it. I think Taylor won probably every single round, but still, you can't take nothing away from Taylor. It was a good win for him, and from the first bell you could see that he was always going to win the fight. He was very much in control every second of the fight, and he really showed levels to his game. And a lot of people kind of getting on Ryan Martin's back, saying he's not as good as we perhaps thought he would, or thought he was, but he just simply couldn't get going at any point, and that's, I believe, because Taylor didn't allow him to. Did you happen at all to see any of this? I'm guessing you probably didn't, Eddie, but did you manage to see any of this World Boxing Super Series card at all?
No, I didn't get a chance to really see it at all.
Okay.
It would have been nice now, hearing all of the exciting things that went down, especially the referee situation. I would have loved to have that kind of go over what it's all about there, but happens.
No problem. But moving on to the last fight on this bill, we saw Nonito Donaire step in against Ryan Burnett. Now, Ryan Burnett was 19-0. Obviously, this fight, like I say, took place in Scotland, but Ryan Burnett was very much, in inverted commas, the home fighter. Like I say, 19-0. He put his WBA Super World Bantamweight title on the line. Also, the vacant WBC Diamond Bantamweight title was on the line here. Nonito Donaire had not made this weight in 7 years, but he returned here at Bantamweight. A weight class which he won a world title at previously, I think maybe even 2 world titles at previously, and he never lost a round at his time at bantamweight. So he jumped in here against Ryan Burnett, the young guy on the up, and it was a very interesting fight, actually. I think the first round was a very good round, very interesting round. Both men were getting through with big shots. It was probably a Burnett round, but really nothing much in that at all. In the second round, it was another excellent round. I felt that Burnett started very well. Donaire seemed to then kind of come at Burnett, and he got off with a lot of his own shots, which looked pretty good. And at one point, Donaire actually pinned Burnett on the ropes, but Burnett, to his credit, then pushed Donaire back, and the pair met in the middle of the ring. Both men were fighting in the pocket. The action was fantastic. It was a close round, but again, probably a Burnett round just by a thread. Then in the third round, probably a better performance really from Burnett in that third round. I felt that he was more dominant. A good start to the round from Nonito, I should mention. At times, Nonito actually couldn't miss Burnett, but Burnett I felt did a lot better there. Nonito landed some hurtful looking shots, but Burnett, when he was pinned on the ropes or in the corner, he had a few moments where he didn't look like he was doing so well, but again, I still felt that Burnett won the round, strangely. Now, in the fourth round, this was a very good round, I thought, for Donaire. I actually had him winning the round, and then out of nowhere, Ryan Burnett threw an overhand right, and as he threw it, something in his back just went, and it was unclear as to what had actually happened, but he took a knee. Literally, he missed, he tried to throw this overhand right, and something happened in his back, and he took a knee, and the referee gave him a count, so it ended up being a 10-8 round to Donaire. And while he was down on his knees, Ryan Burnett, he looked back at his corner with panic on his face, and it was a very worrying and concerning look, and he got back up to his feet. There was probably about 10 or so seconds left in the round, something like that, and Donaire absolutely piled the pressure on Ryan Burnett, and Ryan Burnett seemed to kind of not really be able to defend himself. Burnett did go back to his corner, but he kind of limped back to his corner at the end of the round, and honestly, straight away it looked like he wanted to quit. He actually didn't even go directly back to his corner. He actually tried to go for a bit of a walk, but his trainer Adam Booth made him sit down on the stool, and he whispered in his ear, and then Adam Booth pulled Burnett out of the fight, so it was quite shocking. It was a very interesting fight while it lasted. We now won't see Zolani Tete take on Ryan Burnett, which is a fight that we were all hoping would happen. We obviously didn't get to see Billy Joe Saunders take on Demetrius Andrade 2 times there, where we expected to finally see Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren on the top table at a press conference together, but due to unexpected and very bizarre circumstances, both opportunities have somehow dissolved into thin air, so I'm gutted about that. But yeah, I'm very gutted for Burnett. A very sad way to lose your world title in that fashion. I really hope he recovers, as soon as possible. I hope that he can make a full recovery and, he gets back on his game. But a very harsh way, Eddie, to lose a fight. I mean, being undefeated, being on this fantastic stage, the World Boxing Super Series, what every fighter wants to be involved in. And, he's lost his world title, he's lost his position in this tournament simply because he became injured in a fight that he was winning.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's hard to imagine the feeling of that. It's like when I fought Tomas Dominic a few years back, tearing the bicep in the first round and contemplating, like, trying to figure out what you're going to do throughout the fight, if there's a way to do anything, you know what I mean, to figure out how to deal with through the course of the fight. So it's just like disheartening, man. It hurts you in so many ways. So many plans you have, so many things you want to with your career and things like that, and then you have your title, and the next moment it's based on something that's almost completely out of your control, and it's just frustrating. And I really, really feel for him. It's funny. I met Nonito a few times, and I've seen him up the fan of his style and the way he boxes. But to see a guy, no matter whether he's losing to a guy that you're rooting for, it just hurts you to see it. Because for me, it just brings me back to that time with Tomas. just having to figure out a way to deal with it. But what if I couldn't? What if there was an injury that I couldn't bear? You know what I mean? Throughout the fight. So it sucks, man. It's just, I feel for him. And hope he's better. I hope he lands on his feet soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Very, very hard times there for Ryan Burnett. But Nonito Donaire somehow picks up another world title, so all the very best to him. He's now 39-5, and Ryan Burnett now 19-1. Donaire didn't really go crazy with his celebrations. He totally understood. He was very, very very professional, which we know that he's a real class act, Donaire. He's one of the coolest guys in the sport. Everyone loves him over here in the UK. And, he demonstrated what he's about when he went on social media afterwards, and he's posted lots and lots of long messages, and he truly does hope that Ryan Burnett can recover. But, he's got to kind of focus now on what's next for him. He did win the fight. He's a new champion of the world for, I think, like the 8th time or 9th time or even 10th time, something like that. It's really crazy. But all the very best to him. A good friend of the show, Nonito, and I'm absolutely over the moon for him. But like I say, very gutted for Burnett to see him actually get stretchered out of the ring. I'm hoping it's not as serious as it looked. Moving out now to the Aviator Sports Complex in Brooklyn, New York, USA. Let's talk here about heavyweight prospect Cassius Chaney, 13-0. He moved to 14-0, a knockout in the 4th round against Santino Turnbow, who is now 4-3. Also, we had Dennis Duglin, 21-6, a friend of the show, Dennis Duglin, a fighter that's much better than his record would suggest. He took on a man called Saul Roman, who's got a beautiful looking record, 43-12, but unfortunately that record looks a little bit better than what it is. I don't think he's as good as what it would look. I think he's quite padded in terms of his record there, and Dennis Duglin was able to knock his man out in the 6th round, so Duglin's got a little bit of momentum going now. I'm very pleased for him. Top of the bill here, another friend of the show, Sullivan Barrera. His record 22-2 now, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Sean Monahan. His record now 29-2, still in search for win number 30 for him. I think Monahan's a pretty decent fighter. I mean, his 2 losses came to 2 fringe world level guys, so I think Monahan's right up there. This fight, like I say, I think was quite wide on the cards, but from what I'm told, because I haven't actually seen the fight, but from what I'm told, a lot of the rounds were really close, and Barrera seemed to just nick quite a few of the rounds, so the scorecards look a little bit wider than the fight actually was. Moving out now to the final bill to mention. This one happened at the Don Haskins Convention Center in El Paso, Texas, USA. This bill, in my opinion, was the bill of the Miguels, I call it. Miguel Berchelt, 34-1. He put his WBC World Super Featherweight title on the line against Miguel Roman, 60-12. Berchelt actually managed to knock Roman out in the 9th round, a TKO there for Berchelt. Obviously a big puncher him, so a good fight this one for the Mexican fans. And on the undercard we had Miguel Mariaga. That's what I'm saying, there's 3 Miguels out of 3 so far. That's why it's the bill of the Miguels, or the Miguel bill for me. Mariaga picked up win number 27 inside 30 fights. He took on Jose Estrella, and Estrella was down in round 3 but knocked out in round 4. Jose Estrella now 20-15 with 1 draw. Also on the undercard we saw Saul Neno Rodriguez, 21-0 with 1 draw. He got win number 22 here, a knockout in the 2nd round against Claudio Tapia, who's now 28-19 with 4 draws. Saul Rodriguez, a man that was obviously under the Mayweather Promotions banner, and he was extremely unhappy being there, and he's tried to get out of that contract for a long, long time. He was a very good prospect, very highly touted and talked about for a while, and his career just kind of seemed to lose its spark because of his inactivity. I think he was out the ring for over a year and a half. But yeah, he was back here and back with a bang, so excellent stuff for him. That's really it for the review, and I've tried to go through that as quick as possible. Is there anything that you want to add on that at all, Eddie, before we bring in guest number 1, which will be Regis Prograis?
No, man, just going back to the kid who ended up getting injured, man. It just got me thinking, man. It's just out of nowhere, the title's gone. It just really got me thinking, man. I really hate to see it. That is a horrible thing to have to do. But aside from that, man, we can move on.
Okay, we shall move on. That's really it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up part one, let's now bring in guest number one. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBC Diamond and also WBC Interim champion, I believe, of the world, of course. It's Mr. Regis Prograis. Regis, welcome back on the show, my friend. It's been not too long, just a couple months, but welcome back on, like I say.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me.
Hey, it's always my pleasure. So, like I say, Regis, last time we spoke was in the build-up to the Terry Flanagan fight. You did tell us that you were expecting Terry to be your toughest opponent. You admitted that the experience was with him. You fought him, you beat him. So tell us, was he as tough as you expected or perhaps tougher?
No, I mean, he was something that I expected. I really didn't go out there and try to knock him out. I felt like he was going to be just a real tough opponent. He was a former world champion. I think he defended his belt 5 times or something like that at lightweight. He had way more experience than I had. That was the big factor in the fight, all the experience he had. So, I mean, I knew he was going to come. I knew he was coming to fight. He was going to come to win. And I knew he was going to be experienced. And, I think he was, as far as like a tough opponent. I know I had to come out and I changed my game plan up. I didn't go out there to try and knock him out. I went out there and I tried to box him. And, that's what I did. I just went out there and I boxed 12 rounds. I felt like I boxed beautiful 12 rounds, and I had a whole lot of fun doing it, So, he was definitely a real tough opponent.
Now, on fight week, I know that something happened that was quite horrible, actually. Someone broke into your hotel room. They stole your belongings. Has that situation been fixed? It was very hard to hear about that.
Well, you know what? That actually was a joke. That was a prank, basically. I don't know if y'all got the prank, but it was a joke. So tell everybody, don't be worried. It was just a little joke. It was a prank. We got like a famous comedian in New Orleans, and we decided to do like a little. Got people worried and stuff like that. But I felt like it pushed the fight just a little more. So yeah, it was. Don't worry. It was definitely a joke. It wasn't nothing that was. Nothing was stolen from me. Believe me, nobody in New Orleans would want to steal nothing from me. But they definitely won't be able to get away with it, and I definitely won't be posting none of that stuff. So it was just a little prank. That's all.
Thank the Lord. Now, Terry, in the fight, did he surprise you in any way at all?
You know what? He didn't really surprise me. He didn't surprise me how tough he was. Especially like when I dropped him in the 8th round. He got back up and he kept fighting, and I think that's what surprised me more than anything. That he got back up, and I heard him. I was hurting him, and it just his experience. The experience he had, I guess it took him. It got him through the fight basically. But I know he was gonna come to fight. I know he was gonna be tough. His experience definitely carried the weight for him. So I knew that was gonna be a big factor in the fight. I think, if you look at his rounds and look at my rounds, it's just like he has like probably triple or at least double the rounds professional rounds I have under my belt, So I knew that he was going to come in, and just be real tough, and, he's going to come in and fight his ass off, and that's what he did.
Now, you dropped him with a beautiful left hook counter. You also showed some very, very good defensive skills, Regis. You talk about a 12-round boxing match, which is what we saw. You're not really... Well, I don't want to say you're not known for it, but you're not really given the credit for how much of a brilliant defensive fighter you are, because people just think you're this come-forward knockout artist, but you showed so much to your game. You proved to be extremely hard to hit, even with a man in front of you as accurate of a puncher as Terry Flanagan.
That was my plan, basically. I wanted to show people that I can box. I can really box. I wanted to show, because in my fight against Juan Jose Velasco, he hit me a lot. And it was basically because I let him. I went out there and I didn't fight like I was supposed to, and I let him, just hit me more than he should have. So this camp, I went out and I worked on a lot of defensive stuff, and I just wanted to show people that I'm more than just a power puncher. Everybody thinks, I'm just come forward, power puncher, and no, I just want to show people, I definitely can do way more. I can box, and then against Terry Flanagan, I boxed 12 rounds. And I could have won another 12, to be honest. I definitely could have did 15. I really felt like I could have did another 12 because I wasn't winning at all, and I had fun in that fight. I had a whole lot of fun in that fight. So, I just want to show people, I'm not just a come fall fighter. I can do many things. I can do so many different things, So to get prepared for me, you got to really be on your A game because I can switch it up anytime I feel like. I can come forward and I can slug it out with you if I want to, or I can stay on the outside and box, and most people can't do that. They can't do both, and I can definitely do both. And guess what? If that don't work, I can do something else too, So I'm just showing people that I can be versatile. I can box, I can bang, I can do whatever it takes in more than way more than what people think I can do. I can do more, way more.
Yeah, and you showed that against the world-class fighter in Terry Flanagan. Now, the good thing about this World Boxing Super Series tournament is that everyone knows exactly who's fighting who the moment the fighters know. Now, it's quite clear that you're going to be taking on Kirill Relik. He just recently beat Edward Troyanovsky 3 weeks before the Flanagan fight, if I'm not mistaken. Did you happen to watch that fight at all? Have you had a chance to sit down and watch it?
I didn't. To be honest, no, I didn't watch it yet. I'm going to go back and watch it, but I haven't watched it yet. No, I know he won. He won by 2 points, something like that. But as far as me watching, no, I haven't watched it yet. No.
Okay. Is there any indication as to when that Relic fight may take place? I'm guessing it's going to be sometime in 2019. I know that Relic also is a guy that, he often goes on the road for fights, so I'm guessing the fight, I know it's obviously very early stages at the moment in terms of talks and stuff like that, but I'm guessing it's probably going to happen in the USA.
Yeah, most likely it probably happened back in the USA, and most likely it happened back in New Orleans. That's what they're saying. They said it probably will happen in New Orleans again. We had a good crowd. We had a lot of people there. We did good, so most likely, yeah, it'll come back to New Orleans.
And have you had a chance to sit down and watch Josh Taylor's fight on the weekend against Ryan Martin? If so, what did you make of it, Regis?
I did. I watched this fight. I definitely watched this fight. I really thought the ref stopped it prematurely.
Prematurely.
There was no doubt that he was winning. He got hit in the back of his head, and I think the ref should have let it go on a little longer. But, it was no doubt that, he was winning. He would have won the fight anyways, but I still think it was, I think it would stop, definitely would stop prematurely.
Yeah, I have to agree. And a lot of people were a lot of people were very critical of Martin's performance. He just didn't seem to get going. Did you expect Taylor to beat him with the ease that he seemed to beat him with? Could Martin have performed better? Were you impressed with Taylor? What was your whole kind of take on it?
Maybe with ease, I don't know about that. I'm not. I didn't really know too much about Ryan Martin even going into the tournament. But I definitely expected Taylor to beat him. I expected Taylor to win that. I called it a long time ago that Taylor was going to beat Ryan Martin. So, and then he had home court advantage and all types of stuff. And then I think he was just a better fighter overall. But with the ease like that, I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't know that. I didn't really know too much about Ryan Martin even going into the fight. So it was hard for me to call it. But at the same time, I still thought that, he was going to beat him anyway. I really thought that Josh Taylor would have beat Ryan Martin anyway.
Now, at the start of this tournament, there were 8 men. There's now half of that amount. There's 4 left. Obviously, Josh Taylor being a big name, yourself being a big name. Kirill Relik, the guy that you're going to be taking on, he's kind of got a little bit of a name over here for taking on Ricky Burns. The one guy that the UK fans are not so familiar with is the other guy, Ivan Baranchyk. He's set to take on Josh Taylor. Have you seen any of him to give a fair assessment on how you think their fight's going to go down in the other bracket of the semi-finals?
Well, you know what? I know a lot about Ivan Baranchyk because we actually on the same banner. We both signed with Bellew. He fought on about 5 of my undercards, including this last fight. He fought on my undercard this last fight. That was in New Orleans also. So I saw a lot of him. Ivan is tough. He's real tough as nails, strong Russian, and he's gonna come forward and he's gonna fight. And I think Josh Taylor is definitely in for a fight with him. Is he gonna win? I'm not sure who's gonna win that fight. But I think Baranchyk can pull it off. I think he can pull it off against Josh Taylor just because of how durable he is. He's a strong fighter, and he's gonna swing for the fences. He's gonna fight every round. He's gonna come out and try to blast him away. So I think that'll be a good fight. That'll be a real good and interesting fight. Who's gonna win? I don't know. it's gonna, like I said, it's just gonna be a good fight. I think Josh Taylor could potentially he can box him, but Baranchyk can just outfight him. I know he can definitely outfight him, So, and he hits hard and he's durable, So that'll be a real good and interesting fight, So I can't wait to see it because, like I said, me and Baranchyk, we actually, we cool and stuff like that, and we signed under the same banner under Bellew, and like I said, on top of that, I saw him fight. He fought on about five of my undercards, So I seen him fight live a bunch of times, and I know what he can do, and I think it's gonna be a real good and interesting fight.
Certainly not a man to be overlooked. Now, I wouldn't imagine that the American boxing fans are too bothered by what's happening this weekend, but over here, everyone in the UK in terms of boxing fans are all going crazy about Alexander Usyk versus Tony Bellew. If you've got any interest in this big fight here, tell us your opinion on it, Regis. Can Tony Bellew do this?
It's always possible somebody can do it. Usyk is a beast. He's a real good fighter. I saw him win the whole World Boxing Super Series, so that's going to be really a real interesting fight. Can he do it? Of course, anybody can do it. All it takes is one punch, but, Usyk boxed beautifully, in a World Boxing Super Series final, so it's going to be real hard to beat somebody like him, because he's a real good boxer. That'll be a good fight, but I think I go Usyk away.
You got Usyk winning, yeah. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think Usyk, yeah.
I think a lot of people share that opinion, to be completely honest. Now, Regis, just before we let you go, is there anything at all that you want to say, perhaps that I haven't asked you? If you've got anything that you want to get off your chest, the floor is yours. Say whatever you like before we let you go.
Just make sure everybody know I'm going to win the World Boxing Super Series, and keep watching, and I'm going to keep doing my thing. But right now, I'm on the way to New Orleans to, go back. I got to do some media stuff out there. Of course, mixed with some fun, and but I'll be right back training. I actually already started training. Not even a week from the fight, I started training already. I think I started running and stuff like that Friday. So, I just can't. I can't wait. I can't wait to get back in the ring. Can't wait to start training camp again, and definitely can't wait to get in there with Relic and and then just go out there and do what I've been doing. But like I said, I tell people, I'm more than just a big power puncher. I show people that I can box, and I can do so many different things. So, just if you thought this was a good performance, I guarantee you can't wait till the next show when I fight Relic. It's gonna be another big performance for me, and I'm gonna keep doing my thing. That's it.
And lastly, Regis, I just want you to confirm for everyone that's listening your social media handles, because you've got a real interesting life outside of boxing. I've seen you do many interesting things on Instagram Live and stuff like that. Where can people follow you? And also, please clear up the Twitter situation, because a lot of people still tag your old Twitter account, which you don't use anymore.
Yeah, all right. So my Twitter is @RPrograis, RPROGRAIS. And then my old one was that's not working no more. Basically, I don't have that one anymore. So it's @RPrograis, and my Instagram is @Regis Prograis, and I have Facebook is Regis Prograis Boxing, Regis Prograis Boxing, and that's all my social media handles. So you can follow me on there, hit me up, DM me, whatever, and you can see I do have a very, very interesting life. I do all kinds of stuff outside of boxing. The gym is fun, but I do all kinds of stuff outside of boxing, so go ahead and follow me on there.
Yeah, everyone, please head over and follow Regis. Now, Regis, like I say, from me now, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. You know that. Congrats once again on this epic win, and we shall catch up again very soon, my friend.
All right, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. Now, I usually start with the news, but I will get onto that at the very last part of the show. I just want to now talk about the preview part of the show, but in fact, just before we get onto that, let me read out the predictions from last week. Remember, the scores were completely tied. It was 67 points to myself, to Arias, and also to the listeners. It's unbelievable. We've been picking fights for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of us at the same time have managed to accumulate 67 points. Well, that was the old scores. I'm very happy to update everyone that there's been a movement here. Well, let's talk about the fights. Obviously, there was Zach Parker against Darrell Williams. We all predicted on that. The listeners went with Zach Parker to win by knockout. Arias went with Zach Parker to win on points, and so did I. So we both gained a point there. Also, Josh Taylor. I went with Taylor to win by knockout. Arias went with Taylor to win on points. That didn't happen. And, of course, the listeners went with Taylor to win by knockout. So myself and the listeners gain a point there. And then all three of us all went with Burnett to win on points, which obviously didn't happen because he injured his back, and then Nonito Donaire won the fight. So all I can say is I've gained 2 points there. Arias has gained 1, and you, the listeners, have gained 1. So that means that I'm on 69 points. A very popular number there, Eddie, of course, 69. And the listeners and Arias both on 68. So I'm very happy to finally confirm that I'm winning the prediction league for the first time since starting it. So very, very pleased and happy man I am this week. But moving on to the preview part of the show, let's start at the Victoria Warehouse in Manchester, Lancashire, United Kingdom. A couple fights to mention on this bill, actually. We have Jimmy Kelly, 23-2, former world title challenger. He takes on Christian Gomez, a journeyman, really. I'm not quite sure why this fight's happening. His record 7-37 with 4 draws. Savannah Marshall, the lady training under Eddie Chambers' former trainer, Peter Fury. Her record 4-0. She's in a 6 2-minute round contest. Her opponent yet to be announced, but a very good prospect is Savannah Marshall. Obviously, she holds that amateur win over Clarissa Shields. The only fight, amateur or pro, that Clarissa Shields has lost was to Savannah Marshall. Also on this bill, Brian the Lion Rose returns to the ring after having a little bit of time out. His record 29-5 with 1 draw. He's in search of win number 30. It's a 6-rounder against Alistair Warren, who's 11-20 with 4 draws. Moving out now to Poland, Eddie, and I'm going to come to you about this fight here. One fight to mention just before we get onto the main event, but a guy called Maciej Sulecki, former opponent of Daniel Jacobs. Daniel Jacobs actually took his O earlier this year. His record 26-1. He's in a 10-rounder against John Hamilcaro, who's a former opponent of Josh Kelly. Hamilcaro's record 26-9 with 3 draws. That's a 10-round contest there. That just goes to show how advanced Josh Kelly is. He's taken on he's already took on this guy and beat Hamilcaro, and Sulecki's just coming off a fight against Daniel Jacobs, and now he's fighting Hamilcaro, so that says a lot about Josh Kelly. But the main event here, this is the fight I want to come to you about, Eddie. A very, very good fight, this. Initially when I saw it, I thought, do you know what, that's a good fight, but the more I think about it, the more I think it's an even better fight than I initially thought. Artur Szpilka, 21-3, takes on fellow Polish countryman Mariusz Wach, 33-3. Fantastic fight for the Polish fans.
No, it's a great fight for the Polish fans. It's the kind of fight that we Americans would like to have over here, with our countrymen. And these guys are heavyweights, so it would be an awesome thing to see, awesome thing to witness. Even me, as a heavyweight, a fan of the heavyweight, fan in general of boxing, I would love to watch. So an exciting fight, something that a fight that I would like to get either way. At this point these days, I would like to get any fight. So it's like I said, all around interesting contest.
Yeah, very, very good contest, that one. I'm really liking the look of that, if I'm honest. I'd like to send my best wishes to Artur Szpilka, a man who we've had on this show once or twice before. A very nice guy, and Mariusz Wach, a tough guy. So very interesting fight, that one. That really is. Moving out now to Puerto Rico at the Coliseo Mario Morales, we have Felix Verdejo, 23-1. He returns to the ring against Yardley Cruz, who's 24-11. That's really it for that one. Moving out now to the big card this weekend, Eddie, in Manchester, in Lancashire, United Kingdom. I'm going to start with the undercard here firstly. We have Josh Kelly, a man that we mentioned a few moments ago. His record 7-0. He takes on Walter Castillo, who's 13-2. Castillo has 3 knockouts from his 13 wins, but he's never been stopped in his 2 losses. It's a tick-over fight, I think, for Josh Kelly. I think Josh Kelly's levels above this guy. Josh Kelly, I think, only last week has just become a father. So we actually had a little mini chat the other day, and it was great speaking to him. He's in very, very good spirits, and I'm pleased for him, obviously, becoming a father. So all the very best to Josh Kelly. Also on this bill, we have Dave Allen, a friend of yours, Eddie. His record now 15-4 with 2 draws. He takes on Ariel Bracamonte, a heavyweight who has a record of 8-1. 5 of his 8 wins coming by knockout. This guy's a 25-year-old Argentinian fighter. His one loss was by knockout. He got knocked out in the first round against a guy who was 3-3 in December of 2017. Aside from that, there's not too much else to read into. He's coming off of a win against the prospect who was 6-0, where he actually knocked the guy out in the first round. But aside from that, he hasn't really mixed it at the level against, any names that we've heard of. But I'm sure we both, both wish Dave Allen all the very best here. I think he was fighting about 2 weeks ago also, or 3 weeks ago, and he's jumped in here because one fight fell through on the bill. So he'll be happy to be on this huge undercard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, the one thing about Dave is that he don't like to turn down fights, even though at times it's probably the best bet. But his recent history has looked pretty good. So if he's training properly, and like I always said, he has more talent than a lot of people realize. He just really needs to keep working, stick with it, and I'm guaranteeing he'll do really good things in the future. He's got to put the right kind of effort into it. That's all.
Yeah, very well said. I echo those sentiments. Now, moving up the bill once again, we have Ricky Burns, 42-7 with 1 draw. This is going to be his 51st fight. He takes on Scott Cardle, 23-2 with 1 draw. Now, this is a 10-round contest. It's a very interesting fight, this one, because we were supposed to see Joe Cordina, the 2016 Olympian, take on Scott Cardle. But Cordina had to pull out with an injury. Now, Scott Cardle's obviously not a big puncher, and Ricky Burns is as tough as nails, so there's no way on earth Cardle's going to win this fight by knockout. I think Ricky Burns has certainly had better days. I think he's a 3-weight world champion. He's really achieved some great things, and it's kind of sad to really see him take on someone like Scott Cardle for no belt on the line whatsoever. So yeah, I think he's had better days, and I've been very, very critical of Ricky Burns in the past. And sadly, at this point of his career, I think this is a lot of a closer fight than people think it is. A lot of people think that Burns is going to go in there and stop Cardle. I'm not quite sure of that. I think Burns has probably got enough experience to out-hustle him on points, but I would not be surprised if Cardle pulled off the win on points. And I say that because Cardle, I know, would have been bang up for that Cordina fight. There's no way Cardle wants to lose to a guy who is about 6-0 or 7-0, whatever Cordina is. He would have been taking that extremely seriously, and I think to a certain extent his career was on the line for that. So I think he'd been, really, really training hard for that. And Ricky Burns hasn't really had too much time to prepare for this, so I think that is a thing which probably goes in Cardle's favour with the long time he's had to prepare. Ricky Burns hasn't. Ricky Burns, like I say, at the very tail end of his career now, I've been very critical for him or on him in the past, and I think this fight's a pretty close fight, as sad as it is. Ricky Burns, this is his 51st fight, and he's taken on Scott Cardle for no title, but Cardle's in a real tough place. He hasn't had a meaningful win for about 2 years now, and Ricky Burns obviously coming off that loss last time out. Oh well, he's had a fight against a journeyman in the meantime, but the loss to Anthony Crolla, he hasn't had a meaningful win since back in 2016, 2 years ago as well, against Kirill Relik, a very a close fight that I think the scorecards were a bit wide on. So yeah, both men kind of at a little bit of a crossroads here, but an interesting fight that one should be. I'm going to go with Ricky Burns on points, so have the listeners, and Arias has informed me that he's going with Burns on points also, so we're all in agreement there. Moving up the card once again, let's now talk about the Anthony Crolla fight. Anthony Crolla 33-6 with 3 draws. We mentioned there the win against Ricky Burns. He takes on a guy called Daud Yordan, who's got a record of 38-3. Now that record again looks absolutely brilliant when you look at it on paper, but when you actually analyse the 3 losses. One came to Simpiwi Vetyeka. That was back in 2013. I don't think there's real, too much shame in that, to be honest. He got stopped in the very last round in a fight he was losing. He got knocked out against... he lost on points to Chris John, a real good fighter he was. That one was back in 2011, and then before that he lost in 2010 to Celestino Caballero. So, to be honest, this guy's even took on Robert Guerrero back in the day. It ended up being a no decision. I think the fight got stopped early due to a cut or something. That one was back in 2009. So this guy's been around a long, long time. He started boxing professionally in 2005. So 13 years later, here he is against Anthony Crolla. But do you know what? I thought his record would be really padded, but it's not as bad as what I actually thought it was. I see this as quite a close fight, actually. I mean, one that I'd favour Crolla in, because I think Crolla, when the pressure's on him, I think he really can perform. Obviously, it's in his backyard in Manchester, so I know that the crowd gets behind him there. They love Crolla, and he seems to up his game when he's fighting there, but I think this is a much tougher fight than I actually thought it was. So there could be a few moments there, a few scares during that fight for Crolla, but I'd back him to win. But the main event here, I'm going to come to you also here, Eddie. Alexander Usyk, 15-0, the winner of the World Boxing Super Series, the man that holds all 4 major titles in the cruiserweight division. He takes on a man called Tony Bellew, who we all know very well, including yourself, Eddie. I know that you and Tony have done some rounds in the past. Bellew's record 30-2 with 1 draw, arguably coming off of his 2 best wins, really, the 2 back-to-back wins against David Haye. But here he steps in against a man who is in his prime, a man who is undefeated, and a man who is in the top 3 or 4 on pretty much everybody's pound-for-pound list. How does this one unfold, Eddie?
Honestly, I'm a big backer of Tony. I like him. He's a good guy. He's a friend. I consider him a friend. We did some rounds in the past. I was surprised, pleasantly and unpleasantly, that he's actually a lot better than most people thought. Like, I've seen him before, I heard of him. But then when I sparred him, I realized he's a lot better than I thought he would be. But, with that being said, we got a guy with Usyk who looks to be the future of what the division, what boxing is, in the bigger divisions, be it heavyweight or cruiserweight. And he looks like he has just a hell of a game overall. You know what I mean? He's a southpaw. But he's a slick boxing in a sense, southpaw. Not slick in the way you would think with head movement and all of those types of things, but more distance, understanding distance, activity, and throwing punches at odd angles.
Great feet as well.
Yeah, and extremely good speed and footwork and things of that nature. But Tony is one of those guys who, like we look at David Haye, and at one point David Haye was in that position, and obviously you get to David Haye step in the ring with Tony, and all of a sudden we're singing a different song about Haye. So as great as, I'm saying that Usyk is, Tony's the kind of guy that can upset the whole thing. You know what I mean? He has that temperament. He has the confidence. He has the punching power and the ability in general to do it. But it's going to take some real soul searching. He's going to need to dig deep, and he's going to have to do some things that maybe, I don't know if he's able to. I think he could, but he's going to have to do things that maybe we haven't even seen him do up to this point to really pull this one out. It's going to be a tough one. It's an uphill battle, no doubt, but I think it's something he's capable of getting. You know what I mean? But obviously, if you're smart, you're gonna follow and you're gonna back Usyk in it. But I have no choice in the matter. I gotta back Tony.
Yeah, you say if you're smart to back Usyk. Funny enough, our listeners. Sorry, go on.
No, in a sense, I'm saying that it's because smart money would say, okay, go with the guy who.
I know what you mean.
Go with the guy you got your money on. You would bet money on. And in this recent past, we've seen that to be true. But like I said, Tony's the kind of guy that can upset it all. But you got it.
Yeah, I mean, the listeners are actually going with Tony Bellew to win by knockout. I mean, that is a dream outcome. I would love to see that happen. I truly would. Arias is going with Tony Bellew to win on points. But myself, I mean, well, Eddie Hearn said it himself. He said that, this is a fight where he kind of... I think initially advised Bellew to not take, and he didn't really think Bellew was serious when he actually said, I want that fight. Usyk is a man that, I mean, he's just so impressive. For a big guy, the way he moves, you picked up on that, Eddie. This guy is something special. This guy has got, the world at his feet pretty much. I mean, if he does decide to move up to heavyweight properly, which I think he is planning to do, should he get through Bellew, then I think even his future there is absolutely fantastic. But, keeping it one fight at a time, if I have to pick how this fight's going to end here, because I think a lot of people, including Tony himself, even his trainer Dave Caldwell, Eddie Hearn, everyone's pretty much saying this is the last time we're going to see Bellew in a ring. And don't get me wrong, I would love to see Bellew win this fight more than anything. I've become a massive Bellew fan over the last couple of years, but I must say, I think that because it's his last fight, and I think he knows that, even, like I say, his trainer, his promoter, they all keep saying this more than he does. I think it's at the back of his mind that this is going to be his final fight, and I don't think there's any shame in going out on a loss, in fashion even. And what I'm saying here, Eddie, is I would not be surprised if, this is going to sound pretty bad, but I wouldn't be surprised if his corner pulled him out if things were going bad for him, because who really gives a damn? Because he's not going to fight again anyway. He's been paid, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I know Tony, and I know how he thinks, and in general how fighters are. He's definitely going to go try to go down and fight, and it's commendable, man, to take your last fight and say, hey, I want to fight the best guy I can. You know what I mean? The best guy that's around. You know what I mean? And try to end on a high note, picking up some more titles, possibly. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to give him credit.
I give him tons. Yeah.
No doubt. You got to look at him and say, damn, man, you're doing the thing that a lot of guys would not have done. You know what I mean? Even looking at Floyd Mayweather. You know what I mean? Floyd Mayweather. I mean, he's the money man, so he got to do what he got to do to get that money, and that's just his thing. That's his stick, but. Looking at Tony, what he's doing, he's stepping in the ring with a dragon on the final fight. That's tough. You know what I mean? He's going out with a bang for real.
Yeah, he truly is, and like I say, it is commendable. And he's got massive cojones, like we didn't already know that. He's honestly. If he wins this is absolutely mega, and he needs to fight again if he wins this. But I mean, listen, I've learned before you can never really back against Tony Bellew. For that reason, I give him a chance to some degree, but I just think if I absolutely had to give my prediction, if a gun was held to my head, which is not obviously, but we do the predictions here, I must say I think that Usyk will stop him. And like I say, I think if things are going hard for him, then his corner can pull him out, and no one's really gonna care, because if people say, oh well, he lost, he quit on his store, or he got pulled out by his corner. He doesn't really. I mean, I don't think he really cares. I mean, he's taken this fight because it's a humongous fight. He didn't need this fight at all financially, and I think there's no real shame in him losing. And no matter how he loses, really, I think, like I say, if they pull him out, no one's gonna care. Really, he's not gonna care. Is what I'm saying. He's not gonna care what the fans think. He's been paid. He's not gonna fight again. It's not like he's got to get his faith restored by the fans. He's not gonna really care because he won't be fighting again. So. Huge credit for him to take this fight. But what I want to ask you, Eddie, obviously you mentioned Usyk being a southpaw that can move extremely well for a cruiserweight. What is Bellew's money punch? Like we say, you've been in a gym sparring with this guy. He's got a tremendous right hand, but something that we've seen time and time again is his unbelievable left hook. What would you say is his danger punch against a southpaw like Usyk?
Well, conventionally, the right hand is lined up perfectly for that particular, for the right hand. So him being a good right-handed puncher anyway, obviously that's the one you want to sit on. But there's something I learned a while back when I was, sparring with southpaws, and I've sparred with a lot, fought a few over the years. And it's very difficult at times for them to see the check left hook coming. So, with that being said, if Usyk gets a little heavy on the front foot, and he's not necessarily known to be that way, but if he gets a little too heavy on the front foot and a little too aggressive at any point in the fight, that check left hook will be there. You understand what I'm saying? So, if he wants to come on the front foot, maybe be a little heavy with the jab, a little bit too front foot happy, like I said, the check left hook could beat it. It absolutely can. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that just look for one particular punch for a knockout just to, get lucky. But I am saying that as a part of a strategy, put him in that direction, push him toward that thing. You know what I mean? Maybe let him lead a little bit just so he can fall into something. I mean, he's used to being the guy that counter punches and keeps you offset and uncomfortable. Well, you have to find a way to make him that guy. You understand what I'm saying? And he's busy too, so he gives you opportunity, even with his amazing footwork and boxing ability. He still gives you opportunity. And being that Tony has a great deal of experience and understanding, a good left hook, great right hand, you know what I mean? He's got to be able to figure out a way to get him to put himself at risk a little more than he usually does. And he gets a little bit too pumped and happy, a little too excited. And the opportunity will be there, for him to land not only the right hand, but definitely the check left hook. So you just got to make sure that you allow that to happen, not be a little bit too conservative or even too forceful in your attack either.
Excellent breakdown. Very tactical, Eddie, and that was fantastic science of boxing there. I love that. One thing that Tony does need to do, which I'm sure he has done, I hope he sat down and watched the Usyk Michael Hunter fight, because that was a fight where I think we really saw a lot of Usyk's game. And I'm not going to say he got exposed against Hunter, but I think Hunter showed the blueprint, if you like, how to get the better of Usyk, because Hunter was counterpunching him, comfortably for the first 6 or so rounds. So that's a fight he needs to check out. But yeah, that's really enough on that card there, Eddie. If you wanted to throw anything else in just before we wrap that card up, then you may do so.
Well, like you said about the Michael Hunter thing, and Michael Hunter's another one of the guys who's a pretty good boxer. He was at the cruiserweight division, now moved to heavyweight. And like you said, it's kind of a blueprint. When we say blueprint, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work perfect. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work and he's going to win the fight. But what it does is it gives you an idea of what to do, some kind of manual of how to fight someone who seems to be such a difficult person to deal with. And Michael Hunter, being an athletic, young, quick-handed guy with a lot of heart, kind of gives an idea of if you watch the fight, of how to somewhat deal with a guy that is as crafty as Usyk is and has the ability he has on top of the activity. You know what I mean? You have to be willing, like I said, to do some things and be a little more active than maybe you normally are, if that's your style, to the counterpunch. But at the same time, you got to still make him vulnerable. You got to still make him go out of his comfort zone in order to grab a victory too. So you can't. The thing about these guys like Usyk and like fighters that are dominant is they have to be uncomfortable. Have to make them uncomfortable. My thing with Vladimir, when I fought Vladimir, was that though he was uncomfortable at times, defensively, I didn't make him uncomfortable enough. And as a balanced attack, you've got to be able to do both. If you can make the guy uncomfortable both defensively and offensively, then this is a 50-50 situation for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's move on though to a place called the Miami-Dade County Fair and Expo in Florida, USA. A couple fights to mention over here, really. Usyk Gamboa tops the bill, 28-2. Well, an up and down career he's had. It's a 12-rounder against Miguel Beltran Jr., 33-6. This is almost like a last chance saloon, really, for Usyk Gamboa. Many people would say he's already kind of, kind of lost it, and no one's really that interested. But I will say I think he's coming to his final stages. He needs a win here. Also on that bill we have Juan Manuel Lopez, 35-6. He takes on Christian Mino, who's 19-2 with about 17 knockouts. I think he's actually coming off of 2 losses though, so yeah, a must-win there for Juan Manuel Lopez, who again is another guy at the very much the tail end of his career, you'd say. And now moving out to the final bill, this one happening in Chicago, Illinois. This one a World Boxing Super Series card once again. We have, well, 2 cruiserweights to mention here. Maris Briedis, 24-1. He takes on Noel Gavor, who's 23-1. Now, obviously, Briedis, we know that he's boxed at the higher level. This guy Gavor, it's the first time we've seen him in the tournament. Obviously, Briedis was in the first one. This is the second one, but his loss came to Usyk in a very, very close fight. People forget a majority decision in favour of Usyk. He really gave Usyk a fight. And when I mentioned there about Hunter, kind of showing what to do, I think Briedis did a lot of that as well. So I should have probably mentioned him also. 2 fights I'm sure that Bellew has watched. But yeah, Noel Gavor, I mean, not a big puncher. 10 knockouts from 23 victories. The one loss came by split decision to Krzysztof Włodarczyk, so no shame in that really. So this will be pretty good. I wasn't the biggest. I don't know too much about Gavor, but actually looking at his record, he's been in there against Stephen Simmons, Scotland's very own, and that one was a split decision over 12, so that doesn't look too good. But yeah, he's got a win over Brudov. And a couple of other guys, including Bellew has a guy that I think Joe Fournier fought, actually, funny enough. But yeah, I'd expect Briedis to win that one with relative ease. But also on the undercard, another World Boxing Super Series cruiserweight fight here. We have Krzysztof Glowacki, 30-1. Once again, his one loss came to Usyk. That was when Usyk dethroned him for the WBO World Cruiserweight title back in 2016. Yeah, that one was on points. He takes on Maxim Vlasov, who's 42-2. Those 2 losses came to Gilberto Ramirez back in 2015, still the undefeated super middleweight world champion, and also to Isaac Chilemba back in 2011 in what was a pretty close fight actually, including this guy knocked Chilemba down twice, which a lot of people don't manage to do because Chilemba is really teak tough. So yeah, that's a pretty good fight there, to be honest. Vlasov very durable, and Glowacki a real good boxer actually. Very underrated. A lot of people kind of forget him. The way Usyk just dissected what he did and boxed his ears off really, and that was when we really saw Usyk blowing up on that world stage for the very first time as a professional. I expect that one to go points, but that's a fantastic fight. Eddie, just before we wrap it up really, because that is the end of the preview, and for me, is there any words that you want to say on those cruiserweights? I know that you're kind of in and around that division at the moment. I'm not sure what your weight's at, maybe you can tell us, but are these cruiserweights guys that you've got any knowledge on, the ones that I've just mentioned on this bill here in Illinois?
Yeah, pretty much seen most of them, and they're all nice, and these are all great fight opportunities for me, but in general, great fighters to watch. You know what I mean? The cruiserweight division very much is like a throwback division to what the heavyweight division was years past. So when you look at these guys, and they're a good iteration of what the heavyweight division, when you hear me say heavyweight division, I mean the heavyweight division, because that's what it is. The heavyweights you see currently that are labeled heavyweights are more like super heavyweights. So, but the way they look, as far as like Usyk and Mike Hunter and Glowacki, those guys, Briedis, these are all heavyweights of years past, and it's the kind of situation where you get the big, but you also get the skill and athleticism too. Not saying the big guys aren't athletic; it's just they're so big. If they are athletic, it's almost unfair to someone who's a normal size human being fighting them. You know what I mean? So, what I'm saying is, the cruiserweight division should get a lot more eyes, should get a lot more attention, because these fights that are available in the cruiserweight division, and I think Steve Cunningham and Tomas Damic was, and I don't even say that's the beginning, but the recent history of the division, those fights were big, interesting, great action fights. You know what I mean? And then, even with, you go back as far as with the O'Neal Bells and Jean-Marc Mormex and even with David Haye being in the mix somewhere a little later, these fights are awesome. These are the kind of fights that most fans would love to see, but there's not a lot of knowledge on this division. And I think there's one little mistake, and that's calling it the cruiserweight division. What is the cruiserweight division? Most people don't even know what it is. But if you call it heavyweight and you start putting those fights on primetime television, they're going to start thinking that these guys are heavyweights, because they are. And it's going to make it more interesting to the people just by changing the name. Then you're going to get more eyes. Then you're going to get more attention. Those guys are going to get the money they deserve. That's it.
And Eddie, just lastly on yourself before we let you go, I saw that, Tyson Fury's obviously out there now in California, currently, if I'm not mistaken. I saw that you posted something, about like this, watching these videos is making me want to come back. Where are you with this whole thing, if you can tell us? What can you tell us? And also, will you be meeting up at some point with Tyson before the fight?
I talked to him a few times in preparation, even before you even signed for it. I would love to, but it's just, man, I have crazy things going on here. I'm still trying to plan to go now. It's been a bit of a struggle to figure out how I'm going to get time to do it on that day. But I definitely would love to go support my man Tyson in this big, huge fight. And he's actually, well, I can't say he's super close to me now, because the fight is going to be out in Vegas or Cali or wherever. It's going to be super far away. So I can't say he's any closer to me than he would be if he was in the UK. But it would be good to get out there to see him. You know what I mean? However, as far as my comeback, I mean, I've been training, I've been working, and it's just, we all know the business of boxing is a little different, it's a little difficult sometimes. It's hard for me to get any footing in that. I mean, I'm willing to take fights that I probably wouldn't even have looked at twice before, just to get an opportunity to get in there and get warm and just get people to see me again, And it's just, like I said, I'm open to these opportunities. I'm open to fights. I'm open to pretty much, I don't say anything. I don't want to sound desperate, because I'm not desperate at all. You know what I mean? If my boxing career ended, based on inactivity and the fact that I couldn't get out there and do, get any fights, I mean, it's okay. But at the same time, I would like to. You know what I mean? This part of my career, I'm a little more in control of, a lot more in control of, and I just want to have a good ending to what was a pretty good career so far.
And Eddie, who are you? I mean, who are you kind of looking at? I know that you're pretty much sitting there, ready to take on whatever people offer you and have a look at that. And you're not really someone who's going to start offering someone fights. You're kind of there waiting for someone to offer you a fight.
Right.
Who would you be looking at though? Would you be looking at the likes of a prospect coming up, someone like a Daniel Dubois, someone like that, or would you be looking at a guy that's, I don't know, had a whole bunch of fights, someone like a, I don't know, someone that's been around the block, or someone on the come up?
Well, I mean, either way, honestly, I mean, I know guys now are going to look at me and say, oh, well, there's an opportunity to get a good record on your resume, or a good name on your resume. And that's great. That just gives me the opportunity to do the same thing. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I mean, I'm pretty much open to either way. I mean, there's going to be a lot of prospect calls, if there's any calls at all. Because they think there's an opportunity, like I said, get their guy a good win from a guy with some experience. And, obviously I think it's a big mistake, but, but actually for them, it looks to be a smart move. So with that being said, I'm open to any of it. And I mean, I would love to just get back out there. You know what I mean? I obviously want to get a couple fights to get me kind of warm to the task, so I can get the best account of myself when it's time to get in there. But, for a bigger fight. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. You know what I mean? And I got to be ready when the time comes. And I'm prepared to do that. So, let's get it. Have them call.
And like I say, we've wrapped up the preview part of the show, and just before we bring in guest number 2 and ultimately end the show, there is one last thing to do, and that is just to say goodbye once again to Eddie. Eddie, thank you so much for coming on, replacing Arias like you have done many, many times. I'm sure that we'll do this again another time soon. But yeah, like I say, thanks for coming in and filling the gap as you've done plenty of times before. It's always great to have you on for the whole show like usual.
Yeah, you're the man. I appreciate you even having me on. It's a fun time. It never really catches me out of place. I mean, I had to do it from the car today, but that's just a relaxed little place for me at this point. I spend a lot of time in the car anyway. So anytime you need me, Joe, all you got to do is tell me.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Right, just before we wrap up part 2 and ultimately end the show, the last thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning USBA middleweight champion. It's, of course, Mr. Luis Arias. Luis, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Appreciate that, man. Thanks for bringing me back.
Hey, it's always great to have you back. So, Luis, we haven't spoken for around about a year. We last spoke just before that Daniel Jacobs fight. Now, I know that that's kind of last year's news now, but a lot of people felt that you underperformed that night. I think you'd probably agree that you didn't really fight to the best of your abilities. You were served up your first and only career loss. What seemed to go wrong for you that night, Luis?
Well, yeah, it was obviously the worst performance of my life. Given the stage, it just, the hype up, the build up, I really just dropped the ball. But it was just a matter of just me not quite being ready for that type of a stage yet. I was actually hurt. After about the third or the fourth round, I made a rookie mistake, got some new shoes, and I ended up catching a pretty severe blister on my right foot. When you're boxing, everything comes off that back right foot, so I wasn't able to really stand, firmly since 4 or 5 rounds. And Jacobs was just too big, too athletic. And, it showed that night. It was no excuses though. He was just, he was a better, bigger man. And I just wasn't quite ready, but, I still was able to manage to go the distance. He didn't even beat me up at all. I didn't have any, marks on my face. I came out that fight healthy. I'm healthier now. I'm stronger. I'm more mature, and I'm ready, and now I feel like I'm at that stage in my life where it's ready to compete at the world level.
And since that fight, obviously Daniel Jacobs has fought twice since then against Maciej Sulecki and then most recently against Sergei Derevianchenko. Now, in my opinion, he didn't look fantastic in either of those fights, but both men were undefeated, and obviously both men certainly had their moments in those fights. What have you made of his 2 performances since the fight against you?
Well, he got a world title, so he's a world champion. He did what he had to do to win, so he hasn't looked spectacular, but, he's done enough to win, and at the end of the day, the W is what matters. I feel like Daniel Jacobs is very beatable, and I need the world sees it, but as of right now, he's been finding ways to get through and get the W. So until someone exposes him, he's still racking up victories, but I think he's going to get beat sooner than later.
And is Jacobs a man that you can move on from and kind of just forget about it and move on to the next thing, or do you really feel like you need to avenge that loss in order to get to the top level of this sport?
Well, yeah, I feel like I need to avenge that loss because, like I said, I wasn't 100%. I feel like if I was 100%, I know for a fact the fight would have been a lot different, but I wasn't, and even then, given I wasn't 100%, I went 12 rounds. I didn't have a scratch on me. I never got hurt in the fight. That knockdown was bullshit, and I still managed to go 12 rounds with somebody who was way bigger than me, way more experienced than me. So eventually, if I can get my crack at him again, I would love to. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But it was just a learning experience.
And my last real question on Jacobs now, because it's kind of something that may happen again, may not, but certainly nothing really to talk about for the near future for you. But if the rematch should happen, what would happen in the rematch now that you've gone away, you've matured a lot, you've learned from that loss, the experience, of course, that you've gained from that? What would happen in the rematch, in your opinion?
I think I could get him in the rematch for sure. I definitely give him a tougher fight. I know what kind of fight I would need to fight in order to beat him. So I would train myself for that, and I would be ready, for the stage. Like I said, I wasn't quite ready for that stage. But now that I've experienced going through that, being a main event, being on the big stage, dealing with everything and learning how all the small details count, I would fix all of that, and I know I would give him a much tougher challenge. And then, especially with that, that 10-pound weigh-in the next day, he won't be the same either. His last fight, he didn't look that good. He had to do that 10 pounds in the morning, So I think that'll play a factor into it as well.
Okay, and you yourself, you're fighting on the 17th of this month in Kansas. You'll be taking on Philadelphia's very own Gabriel Rosado. What are your thoughts on Rosado as a fighter, Lewis?
I think Rosado, he's a warrior. There's no denying that. He's been in there with a lot of guys. He's taken a lot of shots from a lot of these guys, and he was able to withstand it and fight back. And he fights with a lot of heart. He has a lot of experience as well. And I feel like this fight was a perfect fight even before the Jacobs fight. So it's a great bounce back fight for me. The styles match up perfectly. It doesn't really matter what you guys think of my last performance. Every other fight before that, I've come to fight. And I've gone to war, so I think this is a great style matchup for me, and I look forward to performing.
And Rosado's a guy that stands right in front of his opponents. He tries to force a fight. It's probably one of his downfalls, to be honest, because his style isn't really the smartest, most intelligent boxing style, but usually it makes for a great watch. Are you expecting a war here? Are you looking to outbox this guy on the back foot? I think there's more than one way you can win this fight, Lewis, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, there is, but I kind of need to prove a statement, So I'm in tip-top shape, and I'm prepared for a toe-to-toe battle. We got to just see how long he lasts. He takes a lot of shots, man. He takes a lot of shots, and my different weapons, I'm gonna be hitting him from upstairs, downstairs, all type of angles. So I really want to knock him out, So I don't want to go 12, but we have to go 12. It is what it is, but I want to knock him out. I need to make a statement. So the knockout is the only way to really truly making that statement.
Okay, I like hearing that from you there. When you do step in the ring, it would have been a year and 6 days since your last fight that we spoke about earlier on. Has that been your choice, Lewis? Have you been in the gym correcting things and improving, or did you want to fight sooner?
Yeah, no, I mean, if I could have fought sooner, I would have, but I was just dealing with the little stuff with the business. The business side of the boxing, but I've been in the gym, I've actually, I've been working at Delray Beach Boxing, a very good gym here in Delray Beach, Florida. And I actually just started teaching boxing for a little bit. I was learning boxing from a different angle, teaching people how to box and just getting the techniques right, and I've just been just around the gym this whole time, I could have been fought, and I could have went and took some easy fights, I went to Mexico or took some little fights here and there just to build my record up. But for what? I was just waiting. I was waiting for that meaningful fight, and it came.
And promotionally, as you talk there just a little bit about the business, the business side of boxing, this will be the second time in a row that you fought on Eddie Hearn's shows. Is there a deal in place at all that you can tell us about, or perhaps not?
Well, when the deal gets done, it'll get announced. But Eddie likes me, and I like what Eddie's doing. So he's obviously giving me these opportunities. He sees that I'm a salesman, and he knows that I come to fight. So hopefully we do get something done. But as of right now, nothing's set in stone. But Eddie likes me fighting on Matchroom shows, and I like fighting on Matchroom shows. So if we can keep that going for the future, I'm definitely up for it. Because I want to come fight in England. So that's the best way, right?
Absolutely. Fingers are crossed for you. And coming down to the last couple questions really now, Lewis, what are you making of the other top fighters in the middleweight division? It's a very good division at the moment. Obviously, Demetrius Andrade, he's looking, Demetrius Andrade looking as good as ever. Billy Joe Saunders seems to have found himself in a very tough position. Golovkin, we're not quite sure if he's going to fight again. Canelo's decided that he's going to move up to super middleweight. Jamal Charlo's a man that it seems like no one really fancies fighting. What is your take on the division right now and all those guys I've mentioned there?
Great. I think the middleweight division, the welterweight division, and the heavyweights are the top dog divisions right now in boxing. And if I can get a crack at the top dogs, like I did my last fight, 1,000% I'd like to take it. I think, like I said, the hottest division, big money fights in this division. And any of those guys you mentioned would be a great fight for me. And if it comes to the table, I'm jumping right on it.
And 2 weeks after your fight, we see a fantastic fight in the heavyweight division, as you just mentioned there, a great division. Two men undefeated collide. The lineal champion that never lost his titles in the ring, Tyson Fury, travels out to the States and takes on your countryman, Deontay Wilder, the knockout bomber with the WBC strap. How do you see that one unfolding? I think you're the first person I've probably asked this question to recently.
I think it's going to be a great fight. It's going to come. I feel like it's going to come down to what kind of Tyson Fury we're going to see. He has looked subpar, maybe average at best his last two fights. But prior to that, he was looking good. He beat Klitschko. He was beating everyone else. So it comes down to which Tyson Fury is going to come. We already know what kind of Deontay Wilder is going to come. He's been showing that us for the last couple of years. Knockouts after knockouts after knockouts. So I'm not worried too much about what Wilder is going to bring to the table. It's more how Tyson's going to look. Is he going to be able to get away from those old demons he had, and is he going to be able to come back to his natural self? Is it too soon for him to jump in there? But it's all going to come down to what Tyson Fury we see, and if it's the wrong Tyson Fury and he gets caught early, I don't see that fight going past 6 rounds. But if it's a good Tyson Fury and he's able to move in there like he did before, I can see him, winning the decision.
Yeah, me too. A fantastic fight. I think if it goes to points, it's got to be Fury. I think if it goes within the distance, then probably Wilder.
Right.
And finally, Lewis, really, is there any closing words that you have at all for the listeners or anyone that may be listening just before we let you go?
To all the listeners, to all the fans, the UK fans, American fans, everybody, Europe, everybody. I know I dropped the ball in my last fight. I made you guys tune in, and you tuned in to a shit show. But I guarantee you this fight will be a lot different. I'm smarter, I'm stronger, I'm more mature. All my things are in order. I'm coming to for a war. Rosado's always brought a war. We know that. And this time I'm going to make up for my last fight. So make sure you guys tune in November 17th, right on the zone. Download it, watch it. It's going to be a great fight. And then looking forward to putting on a show and still in the show. Everyone's already talking about Arias Rosado, so it's a reason for it. And next weekend, I'll show you guys why.
I absolutely cannot wait, if I may say so. Now, Lewis, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, my brother. Thank you for your time. Best of luck for the 17th, and I'm sure that we'll catch up again after this win.
Thank you, my man. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 160 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. The former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Eddie Chambers, has been with me for the duration of this week's show. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, also Regis Prograis, the undefeated world contender, and of course Luis Arias, a man on a mission to right his wrong and become a world-recognised name. As for the news that we skipped at the very start of part 2, there's not too much that's happened really. I mean, Kell Brook's next fight has been announced. It's going to be on December the 8th, which we knew. It's happening in Sheffield. He takes on Michael Zarafa, a man with a record of 25-2. Those 2 losses came to Arif Magomedov on points. Magomedov actually lost to Luis Arias, who we had on the show just a few moments ago. And also Zarafa's other loss came by knockout to Peter Quillin. Also, in other news, Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Sports have announced a partnership partnership with the Italian promotional stable OPI since '82, which now means that Matchroom will be putting on shows in Italy. The first one's going to take place on the 30th of this month in Florence. On that bill, we shall see Martin J. Ward take on Devis Boshiero. Andrea Scarpa, a man that we saw take on O'Hara Davies a few years ago, he takes on our very own Joe Hughes. And Fabio Turchi, who actually holds a strap, I think it's got like an international belt, he'll be taking on our very own Tony Conquest. Not many people expected that one from Matchroom Sports. And the Prediction League, once again, pretty happily, I must remind you all that I am in the lead on 69 points, and the listeners and I are both tied on 68, just 1 point in the lead. I am. And another 2 points are up for grabs this weekend, although we all agreed on one thing, so that's going to kind of stay the same. So there's really 1 point in it. We've all gone for different things on the Tony Bellew versus Usyk fight. And lastly, I'd just like to send a special shout out to regular listener Sedem Amma, who has just had a fight herself at London's iconic York Hall. She not only had the courage to step into the ring in the first place, but she also left the ring with a victory. So a very special shout out to her. But of course, all the rest of you, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in once again. I must say we deeply appreciate each and every one of you for listening. That's it from myself and Eddie. Enjoy your weekends, people, and we shall see you next week.